What your draft wants, baby, I got it. What your draft needs, baby, you need it. What's up, guys? Carbonyl Dota. I don't sing well, but there you go. We're going to talk about what every Dota draft needs. We want to be in perfect balance, hence the yin and the yang here. And, what does every Dota draft need? Do you need initiation? Do you need a tank? Do you need to be able to hit objectives to win Dota? Let's talk about it. Also, I want to tell you guys that I did just hit 7K MMR again. I'm pretty happy about that. And also, if you want to be coached by me, hit me up. Check out the link to my Discord in the description. I have not been doing a lot of coaching lately. People aren't signing up, which is like okay, but I'm available if you want to be coached. So just hit me up if you want some coaching. So let's start by talking about tower push. Why do you want tower push? Well, you have to progress the game by taking the enemy towers. You can't do it if you can't take their towers. So that's why you want tower push. Eventually any lineup can hit towers, but there's obviously some heroes that have tower push as a core component of their kits versus, these heroes on the bottom right where they don't really take towers well unless you kill the whole enemy team and then they're all dead and then you can take their towers. So why do you want it? Pressure. Shrink the enemy map is really key, right? If they have an alchemist, you want to take his tower so that his area to farm is smaller. And they also give you good gold, so take them for the gold. And here on the bottom left, you see some heroes that are good at taking towers innately. Sven with his ult, Lycan and Death Prophet with their ult, Shadow Shaman with his ult, and Jakir doesn't even need his ult, but he's good at pushing towers with a liquid fire. Obviously, there are other heroes that are good at it or not good at it, but these are just some examples to kind of show you what I mean. And what happens when you don't have tower push? Well, you can't shrink the enemy map. That alchemist, that tinker, they're going to have all the space in the world because you just can't even take their towers. And your team movements require more effort, more heroes to get something done. And why is that? It's because if the enemy has all their towers up, they're going to easily be able to react and TP into whatever play you try and make. Versus if they don't have their towers, maybe that enemy carry farming where his tier 1 safe lane tower used to be can't get any help. It just feels really bad when you don't have any tower push. You're like, well, what do? We can't group up and take a tower. So then it's like, ugh, are we just going to wait for them to make moves and play defensively? It doesn't always feel good. So really important to have some tower push in your lineup. Ideally some, if you're trying to fill a hole in your draft, you're like, wait, we have no way to hit buildings. Look for that tower push last pick. Playing with tower push. So you want to group up and play with your teammates. Most heroes are not good at taking towers alone. Maybe Death Prophet is a good example of a solo tower pushing hero. Play with your teammates, have them be behind you if you're the tower pusher, or if you're the support, play behind your tower pusher or play with them. And look to use your power spikes quickly. By that I mean don't wait with your exorcism off cooldown for 2 minutes before you push the tower, right? As soon as your abilities are ready, make sure you have resources to use them and then, go push those towers. And it's important conversely to play safe when your spells are on cooldown. If you are not ready to take that tower, push that next objective because you're waiting for an ultimate or, an item cooldown or whatever, just wait, farm it up, spread out, and then regroup and push quickly once you are ready again. And if you're playing against heavy tower push, you have to be analytical and decide whether or not you can defend the tower and then try to commit to that decision as a team. So if your whole team is going to try and do this defense, try and join them. And, if you're the carry, maybe show up late. But if you're not the carry, you should definitely be there, right? Conversely, if most of your team is like, nah, I'm not really ready to defend that. They don't have the right ability. They're way behind or whatever. Sometimes you just have to let towers go. And that's also important. And having a hero that defends towers is obviously very helpful against tower push. So these tanky heroes that sit in front of towers, Tidehunter, Sand King, Underlord, who's like, yeah, come dive me, take my tower. I kind of dare you, right? My whole team's going to punish you if you try and dive me. Those types of heroes can be really good against tower push. So you see the enemy's got a strong lineup against tower push. Consider drafting something like that. All right, let's talk about the second most important thing in any draft, initiation. So initiation, just to define it, it's like somebody that goes in and starts the fight versus them going on you to start the fight. That's them initiating, right? But don't fights go better when you start it by having one guy go in and stunning usually, right? So initiation is being able to start a fight. So you see these heroes in the bottom left here. These are just some examples. There's much more. Earthshaker rolls in, Sand King blink stun, DK blink stun, Primal Beast charge in. Somebody that just goes in, starts the fight. Why do you want initiation? It just makes your fight straightforward. It's like, okay, the fight is going to happen because our guy is going to go on the first guy we see from them, right? Simple. And it also buys time for your other cores to assess what is going on. A lot of times, fights will start by seeing one person, right? Your initiator goes on them, and then you've got your other cores, hopefully nearby in the area, who can see what happens, right? Is the entire enemy team behind that one guy that you saw, and they immediately pick off your initiator before your team can react? Well, then your cores are like, okay, not a big deal, not the end of the world, we just back off, right? We don't take that fight. Versus, maybe you have good information that whoever you're initiating on is like kind of alone, but it still gives times for your cores to be like, okay, time to follow up. Or, other teammates, doesn't have to be cores, right? But it allows time for your team to like, when you go in, maybe you see other heroes. You go on one hero, but you see other heroes and you're like, oh, well, I wanted to go on this guy who we didn't see and now I see him. So the initiation also works in that way to give more information for everybody else to then be able to like take their best fight. And so what happens when you don't have any initiation on your draft? I mean, this is like a lot of low MMR games in a nutshell with the way people draft, right? You've got these Jakiros, snipers, vipers, whatever. Like, you can't start a fight with these heroes. You basically, somebody on your team gets gone on, and then you try and react, or, you kind of just have to group up and walk down a lane. But then, like, it's just so obvious what you're doing and where you are. It's easier for the enemies to rapid initiate on you. If you're just sitting there and they know where you are, it's very easy for them to set up on you. So that's why you want some sort of initiation on any draft. So if you don't have it, you can't force these fights, which is also bad. You could be ahead, but if you can't force a fight, then like the enemy just splits up and farms and you can't stop them. Fights don't start well. Like I said, usually it's just somebody on your team getting gone on. And it makes the game hard. It's just no initiation makes the game hard. So, if you're like a lower MMR player, your teams don't draft this sometimes, try and learn, like, whatever your role is. It can be a core. There are cores that initiate and there are supports that initiate. Try and like pick up one of these initiator heroes and be like, all right, I'm just going to be the one that starts fights for my team. So when you're playing with initiators, make sure your initiator is at your play attempts, right? Don't smoke it up, you and your other support, right? If you're like a Rubik and a Jakiro, don't smoke it up without your DK with his blink stun, right? Like, just make sure your initiator is there. And then let them initiate, right? Don't make contact with the enemy. Like, don't let your initiator be in the back, right? Have him be in the front. Be ready to follow up. And then think about what your team's follow-up should be, right? Our guy runs in, stuns, right? What do we do? Like, do we have a specific hero like a Mirana that we want that follow-up stun with? Do we want to use that information like I talked about before to maybe like find their Oracle or their Dazzle in the back and like target him? What is our follow-up to this initiation, right? Do we need to find that Drow, that sniper? Or is it just like, yeah, let's just like kill the first person we see because we have really high damage? And when you're playing against high initiation, make sure you're monitoring where on the map that initiator is. Especially these lower MMRs, like these people just show on lanes when they're the dangerous hero, right? If they've got their like really dangerous initiator hero showing somewhere, take note of that, right? Like, okay, well, that's where their playmaker is, so that's where their potential for plays are, so you can be safe in other parts of the map. And be careful with your positioning, right? If you're not sure where the enemy is, be mindful. Well, what happens if their initiator goes on me right now? Like, am I in a good spot? Or like, am I behind my cores if I'm a support, so that if the initiator goes on my core, I can help them? And have a plan for how to react to it, right? If they're going to blink stun on their Sand King, what are we going to do? Do we have a Force Staff ready? Do we have a Glimmer ready? What is our plan when they do react on us? So try and plan that out in advance. Think about what's going to happen. Like, what should I do if they initiate on me? If you have some idea of what you want to do, the fight will just go way simpler when it does happen. Even if you're caught off guard when it happens, if you've already thought about what you should do, you'll react better. Since I brought up initiation, I want to talk a little bit about counter initiation. This isn't really, it's kind of a fuzzier concept, I think, but like these heroes like Doom can kind of be a counter initiator. He can also be an initiator, but like Darkseer is really good at counter initiating once the enemy is like converged on like the initial hero they went on. The Darkseer comes in with the vac wall and like punishes that, right? Or the Phoenix is really good at counter initiating, like just egg behind the person they go on, and that makes their initiation really hard, right? Oh, do we fight in this egg now? I don't know. So It sets up really great team fights. It often disrupts what they're trying to do, and it can really punish overcommitment, which is very common, especially at that like, Crusader, Archon, Legend rank. Like overcommitting on like the first person they see is like very popular, and it serves a similar function to some other concepts I'm going to talk about. So I'll kind of come back to that, but it tends to like reflect a good team fight on your team. Like heroes that initiate with big team fight abilities, which I'll also talk about later, like can often be good counter initiators too. If like they get the jump on you, but it's not your team fight guy, then they can counter initiate sort of with their team fight ability. But when you play with counter initiation, if you're like, yeah, it's better if they go on us and then we just react, then you want to be patient and you want to know what hero on your team is best for them to go on, right? Like maybe we should just let them go on our Tide or whatever and then come in with, our Doom later or something like that, which maybe would be a weird draft. But you get what I mean. Like, or, maybe it's like have our position 5 Ogre up at the front and like let them go on our Ogre and then we'll like counter initiate once they go on our Ogre or something. And then positioning matters a lot with the counter initiation hero, which I abbreviated CI there. If you're the counter initiator, you kind of want to be, you don't want to be in the front. You don't want to be the one that gets gone on, but you want to be close to where your teammate is going to get gone on and be ready to jump in and react quickly. You can't be far away. If you're playing against good counter initiation, try and find that counter initiator, right? Or if you can just get one hero on top of them to kind of like cancel their blink or distract them, then it lets the rest of your team like do what they want to do while you've like distracted the counter initiator, right? Made sure they like couldn't do what they were supposed to do. You can also try and bait them, right? Like it's pretty complicated. It's really hard to coordinate that in a pub, but like even you personally, you're like, well, their counter initiators are going to counter initiate my team because they keep running in like they always do. So I'm going to wait for that to happen. And then I'm going to like do whatever my hero needs to do. Or, you can communicate that to your teammate. Hey guys, remember their axe is going to jump and call us if we go on this guy. So like, remember that, play around it. And don't group up when killing your enemy heroes. That's like kind of easier said than done. But if they're going to Darkseer, Blink, Vac, wall you, then don't group up super well. Maybe that means some kills you just can't get, right? If you've got to all group and stack on top of each other to get a kill, maybe that kill is just not a good idea. So let's talk about Roshan taking. This is really key. Every lineup, just like pushing towers, like every lineup can eventually do it if you get farmed enough, but obviously there's some heroes that are much better at taking Roshan and some heroes that just don't really contribute anything other than a couple of right clicks and crappy spells. So why do you want Roshan taking? Well, it ramps up the game tempo, which is great. If you can take Roshan pre 25 minutes, like that makes your team way stronger way earlier. If you have Roshan taking, you can take it in a shorter window of time. So if you see their carry TP'd the opposite side of the map, your team can say, okay, well, we see their carry. Let's go sneak Roshan, and our lineup takes it super fast if we have a Roshan taker. It's also just an extremely important objective. So the ability to take it, have a consistent way to take it throughout the game just makes sure that you'll always have some sort of competitive edge there. A lot of times both teams can take it. There's a lot of heroes that help take Roshan these days, but if you don't have one, it'll just be hard, right? What happens when you don't have one? Well, the games drag out. Even if you're ahead, if you can't take Roshan, it's really hard to progress the game. A lot of times, these like lineups that don't take Roshan well also don't push towers well. These things are sort of related, right? Just can you like take down a target that's pretty tanky, like a tower or a Roshan? Sometimes it takes a while if your heroes are bad at it, right? These heroes in the bottom right, these lions, AM, these are just examples, but these heroes just do not take Roshan well. They're just nothing about their kit enables them to take Roshan very fast, and they have to be quite farmed before their team can take it. And then these heroes in the bottom left, right? Having heroes like these makes Roshan way easier. You don't have to be super farmed. It's just like this Roshan's going to die super fast if we just show up and use some of our heroes' base abilities. Like I said, when you don't have it, it'll drag the game out. You can't progress the game, right? You don't want to take that tier 2 without the Aegis maybe, or it's like you definitely don't want to go high ground without the Aegis. And if you can't take the Aegis without them like showing up and contesting you, then basically it adds the requirement of winning a team fight before taking it, which can be a whole other problem, or maybe it's not a problem, and maybe it's just something you need to make sure you do before you take the Roshan, right? There's lineups that don't do Roshan well, and then you have to kill them all so that you can do it and take your time, right? If your lineup needs like a minute to take Roshan or 50 seconds to take Roshan, the enemy's going to stop you and screw with you while you're trying to do it. So you just need to kill them first and then go take the Roshan. So you identify my lineup is bad at Roshan, but we're ahead. Then you need to think, okay, let's go kill them and then take Roshan. And you could say, well, you could just kill them and just take their towers, right? Well, usually you want that Roshan, even if it's just denied to them, but also it just makes the rest of the game easier. Roshan is so important, right? They have to use all these resources taking out your Aegis carrier, and it just makes any future team fight just that much easier. So playing with Roshan takers, you should constantly be looking for windows to take the Roshan, and consider sneaking it if the enemy is in the wrong part of the map, which is going to be bottom right. Roshan's always top, at least in 7.32D right now. We'll see if they change that. And then play strong when you have the Aegis, right? If you have the Aegis, don't be afraid to take fights and whatnot. You know, and you could still like farm a little bit, wait for your item, but make sure it's at some point and on average when you have the Aegis, you're playing strong, and then you can play chill when you don't have it and wait for the next one. And when you're playing against good Roshan taking, that can be pretty scary, but try and keep up vision in the Rosh area, even if you just drop a ward sentry right in front of the pit, especially early on in the game, that's not likely to be dewarded. So if you're against those Huskars, Ursas, who you think are going to try and sneak it pretty early, drop that early ward there. They won't often expect it. You get the vision, you walk in when Roshan's got 10 HP and they're kind of low, you kill them easily, and then you take their Roshan, right? That just ruins their game. So try and anticipate that and be ready for it. And then have teleports available for possible Roshan attempts, right? If they have an early Rosh taker, be really conservative with your TPs, right? Be like, oh, I need to be able to TP this Roshan if they try and take it. The last thing you want is like you're the offlaner, you TP to the bottom part of the map, and then all of a sudden they're, you know, your support has a great ward, and then you scout Ursa walking into Roshan. You're like, well, I don't have a TP, I can't be there. You know, don't be that guy. And, you know, you can consider also giving them Roshan. You're like, okay, if you see they're taking Roshan, well, maybe we can get a tier 2 tower out of it. This is less popular than it used to be because I think glyphs make it really hard. And also teams take Roshan so fast if you have one. But this is something that used to be more popular, and it still could be a consideration. Hey guys, a little bit of an outro here. Thanks for watching so far, but this is taking longer than I thought it would. There's still a lot more things I want to talk about in a draft, and I don't want this video to go on too long, so I'm going to make this into a little series. Up next, we've got some talking about Disable, as well as some other things in the draft. Hope to see you in the next video as well.